good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. I'm Annette Richmond, and this is Content Marketing School. And I am so excited to have Michelle as my guest today. You know, Michelle, we were talking before we went live. I met you really on Clubhouse.
Yeah.
I used to go into the rooms you moderated, and you were such a warm, generous host. You made everybody feel welcome. And while a lot of people were like that, there were some people in those rooms that like it was all about them.
Yeah.
And so I've gotten to know you more through LinkedIn and through kind of our mutual friends. But this is the first time I'm actually kind of meeting you, and I'm so excited that you said yes. So, for people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Annette. Thank you for having me on the show. It's wonderful to officially meet and shout out to those amazing Clubhouse days, right? Oh, the heart of it all. I am Michelle B. Griffin. I am coming in live from Pensacola, Florida. And what I do is I'm a personal brand and PR strategist. And I work with women, expert women, who are ready to get to the next level. So I really help equip them and craft that professional story so they can scale their business, start speaking, writing books, get featured in the media, basically take them from expert level to authority level by really powerfully positioning them to go higher, get visible, grow that influence, and become a thought leader in their space.
I love that, and I've seen the work that you've done with some of your clients, and it is really, really impressive. And so that was part of that is like launching of the sort of newer company, right?
Yes,
Standout
yes.
Women.
Standout Women is what I rebranded to in February. And I announced at that same time my second book because I also do practice what I preach and teach. And that's, I'm an author and I'm a speaker and I'm a writer and a teacher at heart. And that's exactly what I love doing. So Standout Women is going to be launching into Academy later this fall, and where it's going to be me just teaching, having courses and workshops. And eventually, my big dream is to have in-person events to get women together, because that power of that in-person connection, you take like the Clubhouse feeling we had back in the day and amplify that. It's like no other. So I'm a connector at heart, and I just love showcasing women and their brilliance in a bigger way. So that's what I'm here for. And today's topic is especially important because, speaking of, there's so many brilliant people, women included, who I work with, who have brilliance, who have been doing all this content marketing over the years. But then there's a disconnect and we'll talk about what my big thing is for, next step on content marketing is publishing a book. So I'm thrilled to talk about this today.
Well, I am too. I am too. And so I know that your third book is coming out
It's
in
actually
the
my second book.
oh, it's your
Thanks.
second book.
Well, I'm
Okay.
glad you think it's my third.
I
I
thought,
need
okay,
to step it up.
so your first book was
The
a
LinkedIn branding book.
collaboration.
Yes. And I should have it here, but I'm not in my office today. But yeah, I should have the pink book up. But yeah, that was a bucket list that it's almost been 2 years that Michelle J. Raymond and I published the LinkedIn branding book. And we still have the LinkedIn branding show. So that's our sister kind of company, Michelle Squared, where we're helping people win on LinkedIn and the personal brand side and the business side. My second book is called Own Your Lane, coming out November 19th of this year. And it's all about how you powerfully position yourself and get known for one thing and really define and claim that lane. And I'm all about helping women set themselves apart. And you have to do that really, really powerfully and foundationally and just own it, right? Just absolutely own it and get visible. And so that you keep raising that star in that visibility. And I teach a lot of my framework in that, have a lot of case studies and examples to just help more women get off the sidelines and grow their visibility and their voices and amplify what they're doing. Because at the end of the day, they have transformative work and ideas that need to be out there, because visible women change lives.
Yes, that's true. That's true. I always say, boy, if we could get together, we could rule the world. I really do.
Absolutely.
I really do think that. So anyway, so what was the prompt behind writing, the first book? What made you, do that in the first place?
It's a bucket list, and I should have those. I got to pull out. When I was 13 years old in like seventh grade, I penned these two little mini books. And a couple years ago, out of the blue, I get this text from my friend Tina, who she and I were BFFs. She goes, "Oh my goodness, look what I found!" And she sent me pictures of these two books that I penned, and they were like said like a million copies sold, Dell pocketbooks. I was like all into this back in the day. So I think it was a precursor for back when I was a child. I had a vision, just like when I was 17. I knew I wanted to, get into PR. So I think it was a bucket list. And Michelle J. Raymond had written the year before her book with Lanier on
Mhm.
company pages. And she and I were just coordinating, collaborating, and everything. And I said, let's write a book. And she said, sure. So we wrote the LinkedIn branding book, The Power of Two. And so that was a huge bucket list, and it changed the game. And that's why I have women. I'm like, you've got to write a book. You've got to write a book, even if it's a small book. We don't have to write War and Peace. So I knew essentially that I would always take my framework that's been tooled a bit and really get that into a bigger way. Because also, not only that, for those who can't work with me one on one or not ready to, a book is a powerful way to start the conversation and the transformation for people, right? So they can know about who you are and what you do and how you can help them. And then of course there's some people who can just run with it, right? But a book is a way to take your legacy and your work into a bigger way. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, so can you just share a little bit, just quickly, what was the difference between sort of, writing with a partner and, writing on your own? And part of the reason that I'm asking this is I want to kind of segue into the idea of, what people can do if they're just thinking about writing. So what are the sort of differences between collaborating and just writing on your own?
There's definitely different pros and cons. I wouldn't say they're cons. Michelle and I learned quickly, even though we're so alike, we had different writing and working styles. So we had to kind of adjust to that. I
Mhm.
like to see everything put together visually, then write. And we used to laugh and say that she was the one would put the sheetrock up, and I'd be the one who paint the walls and decorate it. Like that was how so you have to adjust to the
Okay.
style. And so there's there's a balance there. And we love that. I mean, we created something from nothing there. Okay. We created the brand squared system, the power of two. So there's a lot of collaboration. You got to work really well together. She liked writing in Microsoft Word. I like Google Docs. So there's just got to be, symmetry and balance. So you've got like a relationship. You've got to work and make sure that that flows. But that was great because then on the great side of that, it keeps you accountable. Like, you can't goof off. Like you got to report to your partner on the book. So that was phenomenal. So I loved the experience. But writing for yourself, here's the benefits. I have to joke and say that writing the second book is like having open heart surgery for your business, because I have written the book, scrapped it a lot of different times, because the
Mhm.
business book you should write is the book that is where you want to go, right? This book is a positioning piece for my business, what I want to do, what I want to be known for, and how I want to stand out in the world and how I want to help people. So when I was getting into the book, I realized I had some gaps and opportunities because I'm writing on my framework, right? Like this is maybe a little bit out of context for someone who's just writing about some topic, but because this is tied to my business, I had to make some adjustments. So I realized it opens you up to go, is this what I want to make grow into or not? So it's a transformative experience in that way, but it helps you tighten and realize where you need to crystallize things and maybe expand. So it's almost like therapy in the best way for your business. It's been great.
So, I love that you mentioned that, one of you liked writing in words and one of you liked Google Docs. I have to tell you, I don't think I could do that myself, make the shift. It's just, I don't know. I'm sure that was a challenge, but you two had been working together on the
Mhm.
podcast for a while anyway. So,
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people listening, now later on the podcast who are thinking about writing a book. I think
Mhm.
a lot of people think about writing a book. But they're like, "Oh my gosh, writing a book." I mean, that's like saying, "Okay, I'm gonna build a house," for a carpenter. If you're building bookcases, then now you're gonna build a house. It's a whole different level. So, what would you say are sort of a few things to consider, before you start? Because maybe writing a book might not be for everyone. So, what are a few things that people should think about before they say, yeah, okay, I'm going to take that on?
Those are great questions. I'll tell you, writing the book is not the hard part. It's organizing and crystallizing your message and ideas, right? So that's the number one thing. This past May, and we'll be doing one again in September, my co-leader, Jen Lafine, and I ran the Business Book Writing Challenge. And we had a small founding group where we helped, in 30 days, we're going to write your business draft. Now, one of the things we realized off the bat is, and we had a great assortment of people. These are people who are established. They have a
Mhm.
message to share, work that's already out there. One was a professor. He'd been keynote speaking. Actually, another one was a professor. She'd been speaking. So I would say you're definitely established. You have an idea of what you want to say, perhaps a framework, a different point of view. That's all good. But here's what I taught in the cohort. I have something called the Authority Book Blueprint, which makes you really, it's calling like basically positioning your book. Let's really, just like when I do my branding and PR work, let's get the foundation set. So you
Mhm.
know who you're writing to. What is this book about? What does the reader want? What does the reader not want? Who is this for and not for? How is this different? And what's the transformation? So I would say if you can answer those questions,
Mhm.
the book is almost easier to write. And of course, an outline. Another thing I want to caution is you don't have to write War and Peace. We brought in the concept of the mini book model. Shout out to Chris Stanley. It's a connection of mine. He wrote the mini book model, and now he's actually coaching people on this. And one of our members, I think Jihan, right?
Oh, yes, yes, of
Yeah.
course.
Yeah. So she took, and this is another thing, if you're doing an existing body of work, here's a story. In April this past year, she did a brilliant 5-minute speech at
Mhm.
Disrupt HR. It was
Yep,
incredible.
I remember.
And yeah, so I said, this is incredible. This needs to be in a book. And that's the whole purpose of this book, your next step. And so she took the whole concept of her book, I think jetted it to like 7 key points, and then is writing this book, which will be out shortly. So you don't have to write War and Peace. You don't have to write 200, 300 mini books. And I actually like the idea because we need digestible transformation.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that's what, if you're going to write a book, just like our friend Jillian, shout out to Jillian Whitney. She wrote 3 books this year in the matter of 7, 8 months. They're short books. In fact, the new one just came out and I think it's like 130 pages. Okay. So these don't have to be long. So I
Yep.
think, and you can self-publish. We have people who want to, just self-publish. I'm a big proponent of that. And down the road,
Mhm.
maybe you want a big, publisher, but don't wait for all the things. Just get out there and do it. There's so many providers out there who will help you get to where you want to go. And when you write a book, it changes everything for yourself, your business, and the way people perceive you as well.
Well, it does for sure, and I have all of Jillian's books on my shelf. She's a good friend of mine, and, I love her to death. And, it's true, and it's funny because I was just, doing some research for a presentation, and part of it was the idea that, people want things in kind of snackable bites.
Yeah.
They want to have a program if they're taking a course in snackable bites. They don't want to watch each video is going to be like 15 minutes or something. And so that idea of that, sort of mini book, and you're so right. And, with self-publishing, I know from experience that like Amazon Kindle has an app where if you just
Mhm.
want to self-publish without having it a printable copy, it's so incredibly easy. Even a non-nerd, can do it. But since I have you here and I have to pick your brain a little bit, so,
Mhm.
um, when and I love that idea of, the messaging and I am finding that even with, my business, working with a business coach, that
Mhm.
crystallizing that message is so important for pretty much like everything, that you do. And yeah, that is definitely the hardest part. So can you share a few things that, say, okay, I'm ready. I know, like me, I'm established. I've done this and that. And I have like I have a lot of blogs and presentations and things that I can draw on. So, what can you give us like maybe 3 steps to start?
Absolutely. So once you do that preliminary work because, we don't want to just put anything out in the world. It should have a defined purpose and audience. So once you've done that, you're going to feel like, oh, yeah. So then you can go in and here's the thing. If we're not already doing that, don't worry because there's a couple ways you can do it. Say like on LinkedIn, you could go and get all your data and they will email you everything in a CRV file. Now, from the get-go, when I started posting daily, I archive my stuff, or my VAs do, in Google Docs and Evernote, and we categorize it. So
Mhm.
that the actual post and the link. Okay, so I want what you should do, and then shout out to my accountability partner Mel Stanley and I. She started in January. Here's a fun story. Mel Stanley is kind of retiring from her business, but she's been doing personal branding in the UK for career women. When I was on her podcast 2 years ago, she said, "I will never write a book." Fast forward, she's about to put her book out in September. But what she did is take all of her stuff. She goes, "Michelle, I have courses and everything." And she dumped it in one big file. So what I would think you should do is be an archaeologist. Where is all my stuff? Go and do a big research of all your data, your blogs, your posts, and then just put it, bring it in one area and then start categorizing it. Now, because you've done the foundational work and you know the message you want to get out there with this book, it's going to be a heck of a lot easier than just going to get random information, because now you can sift through, okay, this doesn't fit, this doesn't fit. I have another colleague who is writing a book too, and he just did the same thing. He's been posting LinkedIn since 2019, and he goes, "I have so much for a 50,000 word book, And I
Mhm.
tell clients all the time, your brilliance is fading in a heartbeat in the feeds. Don't do that. Like that, where does it go in LinkedIn? LinkedIn is the one social media platform no one's going to sift through your stuff, right? And so we should be taking that genius and formatting it. So once you get it in there, I would start categorizing it. And then that's going to make it a heck of a lot easier. So your book is almost already there. It's so much easier to rewrite the stuff now that you have the premise, you already outlined it. And shout out to Chris Stanley and the mini book model. If you're going to go that way, I say just do a mini book. His book, Mini Book Model, I'm going to always shout him out. That book, if you go on Amazon, I think it's like $2.99. It's only 10,000 words. That's nothing. And it's like 50 or 60 pages. So it's very doable. Just like Jillian, our friend Jillian said, she goes, "Michelle, I wanted to write a baby book, before I get out my bigger book." So it's almost
Mhm.
like your baby steps. Now, do I say this should be junk and, just hodgepodge? No, no, no. It's very professional looking, but it just whets your appetite to get out there. So get your data, get your information, and then you can start plugging it into the chapters and the outlines and then go from there.
I love that you have that whole system. And it's so true about having, having, 10,000 words. Now, I write news. I have a LinkedIn newsletter. A lot of people
Mhm.
have those. Each of your articles is probably around 800 to 1,000
Yeah.
words. So, and I'm not saying just pull from that, but when you think about it, I've been writing for a long time. I was a magazine writer before I kind of got into this whole thing I'm doing now. And it's having the idea and knowing what you're doing is so much part of it. And the idea that I love too about you sort of breaking it into chunks,
Mhm.
because that really, it makes all the difference. Like when I went to college, I went back as a non-traditional student and I was like, "Oh my God, how am I going to do this?" So I took 2 classes. Oh, okay, that went pretty good. So I
Mhm.
signed on, I got an associate's degree. Okay, that went pretty good. And then next I'm going to move on and I got the bachelor's and so on. But it's when you think about things like, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to sit down and write a book." It's just, but those steps that you're talking about. So what do you have to say? And I just want to give a shout out to Val.
Hey,
Um,
Val.
I'm mispronouncing her last name. It's Ruskin Tooze. Is that correct?
Yeah, Val's
Okay,
incredible. Yeah. Hey, Val, it's good to see you here.
so she said your collaboration and partnership with Michelle J. Raymond is so fun to see. And the book you co-authored with her is exceptional. So thanks so much
Thank
for being
you.
here, Val. She's been here with us in the beginning. And she also likes the idea of having those snackable bites of content. Not
Yes.
my idea, but I'm happy to take credit for it. Um, so what about once people are, they're in there?
Mhm.
and they've had that book like three-quarters finished for, I don't know, a year maybe.
Don't let that
Then
happen.
I know, but let's
Yeah,
say because, life gets in the way.
yeah,
I had a course I was working on for like 6 months, and then I hired a coach to work with me and, got
yeah.
it done. But what do that motivation for sometimes can be difficult, challenging.
Absolutely. I think some of us are born procrastinators because it's hard. You got to go through the hard stuff. And so I would say, there's so many people who want to write a book. You've taken that first step and you've written most of it. So don't become the statistic. Get help. That's why we have our accountability book cohort where here's the thing, we'll be doing this in September and this isn't a plug, but what we did was we have wake up and write rooms. So every morning at 5:30, we'd wake up. It was voluntary to write together for an hour. We don't look at our screens and stuff, but get help to get out there because you're so close to the finish line. Would you run a race and just say, you're running a marathon or something. You're like, well, I guess I'll just, hobble along. Why would you do that to yourself? You're so close. So, because the opportunity on the other side of that is going to be so worth it. Okay. And it's normal for us humans to drag when we see the finish line, but we've got to bust through it because I promise you the opportunities, because you're going to just completely raise that star. You're going to be able to speak. You can do courses, and there's so much opportunity that comes from a book, and it's worth it. Just like anything in life, it's worth it. So that's my 2 cents on that. Because I've been there too. Trust me, this has been a longer process this time because I gave myself 9 months. And I find there were pockets of procrastination. I get it. I'm not pointing fingers because I'm here. I'm talking about myself when I'm
Oh,
saying this.
well, hey, I should have that like as a flashing sign on my forehead, procrastinator. So, because that's certainly me. And one of the things that I just want to mention, and it sounds to me really like the reason behind one of the biggest reasons behind the book, writing the book is like self-fulfilling. That
Yes.
what you get for yourself from putting this together and being known for something and and I that is so important. But I just want to mention and it will also help you get on TV shows, podcasts, things like that as well, right? I mean, that's kind of the entree for those types of things.
I run into people locally who haven't seen, they're like, "Oh, your book's so cool. I can't wait for your new book." So, being in a podcast, having a podcast, it's like, nah, but when people hear you wrote a book and they don't care and they can't decipher in their mind if it's a 50-page book or, one that Simon and Schuster or whoever published. People just think book, author. And I'm
Mhm.
not discrediting either side, but you did something that 90 something percent of the world wishes they could do. Okay. And you're bringing a legacy idea and a point of view out there, and it is fulfilling to me. It's like an intellectual marathon or Ironman, and it's
Mhm.
incredibly satisfying because you also know you're writing this book predominantly, if you're writing nonfiction, presumably to help others, for a transformation for others. So it's impact driven too. So influence driven, of course, but impact driven as well.
Yeah, I love that, and you, as I'm chatting with you, I can feel that teacher,
Yes,
personality coming in. That's kind of I kind of feel like I fit in that myself. That was when I
love
was
it.
like 6 years old, 7 years old. I used to hold classes with my younger cousins, and I was, the teacher. So I
Absolutely.
just wanted to show your profile, and one thing I will mention, to people that you post a lot of information. You are very, very generous with what you share. I learn a lot from you just by
Thank you.
following you on LinkedIn. So are you open to connecting with people? And
Yeah, let me know that you saw me here because I'm a big context person because I love conversations. And so when someone sends you a saying, "Hey, I saw you on that show," it's just the best way to start
oh,
a
here we are.
conversation.
Oh, there we
And
are. Your
here we
profile.
are. Yes, I am. No, I'm really excited because you and I have seen each other, and now we can have context and conversations from now. We have that experience. So saying that you saw me here is always great because I mean, when you just blindly connect with someone, it kind of misses opportunities, if you ask me.
Yeah, yeah. I love it, and I love to see the change, and I believe, do you still have a newsletter that you run for Standout Women? People can sign up
Yes, I
for on
just
your
start well, it's my personal one. I was so late to the game because procrastination, because I knew it's if you go to the featured section, the first issue just launched in July. So the next one, I'm working on the second one for August. It's a monthly right now. It's in the featured section if you go to the right. And I brought the Standout Women show live stream show back, and or reformatted, and that's
Mhm,
been wonderful, where I'm showcasing brilliant women and different themes. So more kind of like a talk show, kind of like this. And I absolutely love chatting with people and women and bringing their voices. So those are Mondays with Michelle. So I do that, and I have my own podcast, and those go to the podcast. Plus, I
mhm.
have the LinkedIn branding show. So my business model from now will be writing, speaking, and launching Stand Up Women Academy, which will be self study on how to get visible, public, personal branding, PR, thought leadership training. And down the road, the big vision is to have some in-person events down the road.
I love that. I will tell you, I had events on my mind years ago, and I had a one-day, career strategies conference for women local to me. This is like in 2012,
Oh,
and it
wow.
just the timing wasn't right at the time, but,
Mhm.
there was really, it was very exciting, and, I'm sure if anybody can do it, you can do it.
Well,
So
it was my previous job. I had a team and a meeting planning, but part of my previous role, we hosted a 2,000 person conference for people all over the world in Orlando. So I know that there are a lot of work though. So I'm not saying something that scale, because you have to have a team. Like, let's
mhm,
shout out to John Asperian at Uplift Live. He does an incredible job, but that's a lot of work, right? So I
yes.
even think small events like retreats and stuff, 'cause not to
Mhm.
be exclusive, but just something more intimate. So let's just say in-person connection is where it's at, especially after all we've been through in the last several years.
Well, I agree with you, and I know with Uplift Live, I believe there's 3 of them that are really
Yes,
partners in
true.
that, he and 2 other people, and from what I understand, it was a fabulous event. So we are
Yes.
down to the end now, and I always like to ask, because this is pretty conversational, and I don't have, like, a list of questions, and so I always like to ask my guests if there's something, that you would wanna add that we haven't talked about that you think would be, important for people listening now or on the podcast, to know.
Absolutely. Well, let's take it in context of the topic on taking your thought leadership into the next step from content to publishing a book. So you can do it. Like, if anyone has an example, it'll be our friend Jihan. She never thought she'd write a book. She had an existing knowledge of work. It was so good. And now she's making a mini book. So don't take off the table the idea that you too can be a published author. It is not as hard as you think. It is not as time consuming or as expensive. There's brilliant people out there that can help you. But if you have an established framework, point of view that's so different and unique, people need to hear it. And social is okay, but let's face it, social media, the reach is down on every platform, right? They're not meant
Mhm.
to bring us to the people, but people go on Amazon and other search places to find solutions to problems, right? So having a book is a wonderful way to bring your thought leadership and reach new people and audiences. Plus, raise that authority level for you. So give it a go. And if you're thinking that's something maybe for 2025 or beyond, start archiving your content. Start finding a way to take what you have out there. We didn't even talk about podcasting and blogs, but everything you're putting out there, even coaching calls where you have transcripts and stuff, just put that body of knowledge somewhere and start putting it in a place that you can go to for later. And you can do it.
Well, I love that. I love that. And thank you so much. That is a perfect note to end on. And I love that you say that it's kind of one of my favorite phrases is it's simple. It's not
Yes,
easy, but it's simple. If you take the step
exactly.
by step approach and start by archiving all of your content, as you just explained, you're on the road to publishing your book. So
Absolutely.
so
Thank
I
you.
so I thank you so much, and I just want to mention that we have here we go. my thing is my mouse isn't cooperating with me. And so Sherry says that Sharon Perry Ferrari says, thank you for the motivation. Lots to think about. So I think you may have someone who's going to be an author in the next 12 months.
I know Sharon, and she's incredible, and she helps a certain niche. And that's another thing. You have a certain niche and point of view. Do it, Sharon. You have so much content too. So yeah. So I'm always shouting women out to get their brilliance out in the world. So that you can do it. It's not impossible. It's so doable. And a shout out to, you'll have to come check out when Jihan tells her story, and that'll be more motivation. So I'm looking at you, whoever's listening. Give yourself, bet on yourself. So say in the next 12 months, I'm going to start taking the steps to at least publish a mini book and see what happens. You'll never know. Your life is going to be so much better because of it. I promise.
Yeah, I thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. It's been such a treat chatting with you. Thanks to everyone who has been here with us. I will see you shortly on the next Content Marketing School live show. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, everybody. Take care.